First story. A customer abused our support staff, so I let her know that she wasn't as anonymous as she thought she was. Several years ago, I worked the late shift as an online customer support agent for a women's clothing company. The other CSAs and I were constantly mistreated by crappy customers, and our managers did absolutely nothing to support us. The company valued its customers so much that the rules for dealing with them were disgustingly lax. For example, this one guy would call and obviously masturbating, but we weren't allowed to hang up on him because he never actually said he was. We had a 3-strike policy where a customer could say pretty much anything they wanted to 3 times before they were disconnected and banned. But we also had a 1-day turnover policy where if a customer was cut off for inappropriate behavior, the ban was reset the next day. So someone could come in, tell you that you're a bitch 3 times, get kicked off, and then come and do it again the next day. The entire time I worked there, I never saw a single person get permanently banned. Not even the masturbating guy. I eventually ended up quitting specifically because a customer harassed me to the point of me crying, and my manager's response was that I could have an unpaid 10-minute break now instead of my 15-minute break later. Yeah. One of the worst customers was this woman we'll call Kathy. This woman would enter our CSA chats around midnight, drunk. She admitted to this. She would ask questions like, "What jeans do you think go with this top?" While the CSA answered, Kathy would say things like, "Wow, this is taking so long. Imagine working a minimum wage job at midnight. Bet you want to kill yourself. Warning number 1. The next time it would get a little worse. Wow, you're such a loser. Have you ever thought about killing yourself? I would if I was you. Warning number 2. The last time each night, it would be something like, I hope you die. You're so sad. You should kill yourself." At that point, we'd let her know we could no longer help her, and we'd disconnect her. And then she'd pop back in chat within a few days, and the whole thing would start over. She always said the same kinds of things. She clearly knew she could say 3 separate terrible things to us. Our managers never helped or stepped in. I once looked this woman up. I wanted to know who she was. To my surprise, I found out that she was a therapist. She had her own practice. I was baffled. What she did was a horrible, cruel, unkind thing. I couldn't believe a therapist would do this. I later quit working at the company. I waited a few weeks, and then I made a phone call to Kathy's practice. I spoke to Kathy. I told her I was seeking therapy. During our intake call, she asked me what kind of issues I was facing. Well, I said, I do this really weird, psychotic thing a few nights a week. I get really drunk, and I start a chat with minimum wage customer support agents, and I tell them multiple times that they should kill themselves. That's so fucking crazy, right? She made a tiny noise. A moment passed. The call disconnected. My friends at the company said that she never messaged them again. Second story. She friend-zoned me and got mad at me for blocking her after. Hey guys, new Reddit person thing. Anyway, I have a nice little story for you guys that I hope you will enjoy. About 3 years ago, I, 25 male, had feelings for a girl we'll call Megan. She, 22 female, was nerdy into anime and played a lot of video games. It was those traits that made me interested in her, since I was also an anime lover/gamer. Over time, that interest turned into genuine attraction. At first, I was hesitant about asking her out because I wasn't sure if she felt the same. But after some encouragement from my friends, I made my move. We met up at a local diner for lunch. The diner was one of those mom and pop places, and the food was really good. As we're eating, I finally decided to tell her how I felt. Again, I was hesitant about doing so, but went through with it anyway. She seemed receptive at first. She asked me what it was about her that made me interested in her. So I listed a few things: her interest in anime, her taste in video games, her dark sense of humor, things like that. I didn't want to ask her to be my girlfriend right then and there, so instead I asked if she would be up for getting to know each other more and maybe going on an actual date or two to see where things go from there. She then goes on to apologize and say that she does like me, but only as a friend. She said that she didn't want to ruin our friendship and that she didn't want there to be any bad feelings if we did get together, but broke up. Hearing that hurt a bit. Part of me wanted to at least try to convince her to change her mind, but the only words that came out of my mouth were, "Okay, I'm fine with that." We chatted for a little while longer before we left the diner and went out separate ways. I tried to reach out a few times after that day to see how she was doing, but I was either left on read or met with one-word replies. So after a while, I stopped reaching out. Fast forward about 2 months. I finally met someone new. We'll call her Sophie. Sophie, 24, was into art and photography. In her own words, she told stories with her art. Whatever piqued her interest wound up as a painting or a sculpture or a framed photograph. She was really good at it, and after a while, those same feelings from months before started to come back. What I didn't expect was, for her, to feel the same way. I asked her to go on a date with me, and she said yes. Date nights became a regular thing until eventually we made things official. After our 7th date, I asked her if she would like to be my girlfriend, and she said yes. The next day when I told my friends about it, they were stoked, since they were the ones that pushed me to move on and not let my rejection from months ago bother me. A week later, I'm sitting in my room, reading a book, when I get a messenger notification. I look and see that it's from Megan. I thought that this was kind of weird, considering the fact that she hadn't spoken to me in months. Out of curiosity, I opened the message. Her message was basically a short paragraph talking about how after having some time to think, she decided that she actually did want to be my girlfriend. Her message said that she always had feelings for me and that she was ready to give us a chance. Now things started to look even more weird. I mean, really, after all this time, all the one-worded replies and unread messages. Now she has feelings? I took a screenshot of her message and sent it to Sophie. After that, I blocked Megan, and I thought that was the end of it. About 2 days later, Megan shows up to my house, and she's extremely upset. As I open the door, she starts ripping me a new one, telling me how horrible I am for blocking her after she confessed her feelings for me. I told her that she has no right to be upset about anything, considering the fact that she was the one who rejected me and said that we would never be a thing. She then tries to guilt-trip me, asking me if her feelings for me meant anything. I then said, where were those feelings when I was single? I told her that she doesn't get to switch up now that she sees me with someone else, and then get upset at me for not going along with it. I told her to have a nice day, and then shut the door. Our friend group is divided on this, and I'm starting to question if I did the right thing or not. I was just a bit upset. It felt like she expected me to just ditch my girlfriend for her just because she changed her mind. What do you guys think? Third story. You want to try to take 9-inch of our property? We will take 20 foot of yours. We have lived in our house for about 8 years in a rural neighborhood in Arizona. About a year ago, this dude from California bought the lot next to us and threw a fit about the stuff we had on the property line. We had put a single fence pole, vaguely, where the property line was. We hadn't had any sort of land survey done. It was supposed to just be a temporary marker that became a permanent marker. Dude was absolutely livid that we had vehicles parked on his property. The very tip of one of our cars was touching the established boundary. He threatened to have our vehicle towed. So we simply had an actual land survey done, and it turned out the property line was a good 20 foot into his property. Homeboy should have just let sleeping dogs lie and not been an asshole about a few inches. Edit. I had some journalists reach out to me and ask for some more comments, so here are the updates you asked for. Feel free to ask more questions for more clarifications, or ask again if I missed yours. Hello. Thank you for reaching out. 1. Zip code redacted for GPS reference. It's a small rural neighborhood in the mountains of Arizona. All the houses are 3 to 5 acre horse properties. The roads are all dirt and unmaintained. It used to be a very understandable place to live, but in the last few years it has been developed and property values have been going up, quadrupling since we moved here in 2016. This has attracted a crowd of people who care what yards look like, who simply weren't here when this was cheap. The neighbor is one of these new people. We moved here specifically because the neighborhood had a bunch of messy yards already, and we wanted to also have lenient neighbors. We lived in harmony with our neighbors' junky yards for years. 2. The neighbor introduced himself by calling the county on a bunch of us anonymously. We knew he called on us because he was bragging about calling the county on several other of the neighbors for their messy yard. So whether he intentionally included us in the report or not, he brought the inspectors to the neighborhood. He came on our property by at least 40 foot before there was a fence to closely examine our piles of scrap metal. We caught this on camera and confronted him in text. It turned out he was very angry that he had purchased land next to a pseudo-scrap yard. We had several cars in various stages of disassembly and piles of materials. Keep in mind, this is the country. This is normal out here. We're on 5-acre lots. Another detail that I missed in my original post. He isn't even living on this lot. He bought a lot with a very small cabin 3 houses down along with the lot next to us, with the intention of turning it into an income property. After we confronted him in text, he confronted us in person in our front yard, leaning against our no trespassing sign and screaming obscenities at us. 3. We haven't seen him. Since we saw him on our security camera, observing the survey markers, dismayed. It's entirely possible that we entirely chased him out of the neighborhood. The people on the other side of his lot, who have an equally trashed yard from their small-scale pig farming operation that he should have known existed before buying the land, had such a bad experience with him that she had a restraining order on him. They are also having a potentially equally funny dispute about a shed that she built fully on his lot over 15 years ago, which means they're going to have to go to court over who now owns it, and our adverse possession laws are certainly on her side. Currently, we are building an ugly fence on the newly surveyed property line.